Welcome, everyone, to Make Your Day Richer, the game show. Let's meet our contestant. Contestant one and only, what's your name and where are you from?
My name is Cinda Gault, and I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a writer.
I love it. Well, thanks for being here. Are you ready to play Rule Breaker Roulette?
I have no idea, but we'll give it a shot.
All right, good. It's pretty simple. We're going to have 3 rounds, 3 questions in each round, and it might be true or false. It might be fill in the blank, but they're probably questions. You may or may not know them. That's the point of the trivia game. But if you get 5 out of the 9, our entire non-existent studio audience gets a copy of Everything I Hope For, one of your books, okay? No pressure. Are you ready, Cinda?
Sure.
All right, round 1. The theme is rebel or routine. These are true or false questions. True or false, women in the 1800s Canada could own land before they could vote.
Probably true.
That is true. There you go. You're already on a roll. Do you see that? Okay. How easy this is going to be? Question number 2. This is the last question in round 1. The phrase Jesus freak was coined in the 1950s.
I didn't come to understand it until the 1970s, but it could very well have been part of the Beat generation, so I'm going to say true.
Ooh, that is false. You were right. It actually emerged in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
So that's round 1. At the end of round 1, you have 1 point, so we're off to a good start.
Okay.
All right, I have some questions for you about your books. What inspired Belinda's boldness in Everything I Hope For?
I would say her personality was to be very independent. She had always understood herself to be a trustworthy person and someone people respected. And when the world turned on her, she was outraged.
How did the 1970s setting shape the emotional tone of that novel?
Well, that's a short question that could come with a very long answer, so I'll try to keep it short. The 1970s were a watershed time, as far as I'm concerned, especially for the experience of women. So that, I would say, is a big theme in this story, and much of what happens is Belinda going into making decisions for herself in a way that would not have been understandable before.
All right, are we ready for round 2?
Yep.
Okay. What item would be most useful in the Canadian wilderness?
You said the word compass, which might be helpful, but I would say probably a knife.
And why do you say that?
Because you'd have to eat, and you would need to hunt, and you would need to skin and chop up and cook something.
That's a good one. Okay, I'll accept that answer. Perfect.
Okay.
These are all kind of not multiple choice, but like you get to it's like choose your own adventure.
I like those kinds of questions.
Yeah. Okay. Which of these is a real historical fur trade role? Is it bark runner or timber whisperer or coureur de bois? Hopefully I said that right. Oh, but you got that so quickly.
That was easy. Yeah.
So true. That's 3 points at the end of round 2. Let's get to your round 2 questions. What drew you to Isabel and Marie Anne in A Small Compass?
What I really respected about them was that they were going to have life on their own terms, no matter what the circumstances, their time and place was going to allow them. And they were obviously very determined women, and they figured out how to get, I'm not going to say what they wanted, because you don't always get what you want, but clearly they got what was important to them, and they were willing to pay the price of whatever that was without complaint.
What kind of research did you do to kind of bring their lives to the page?
Tons of research. Yeah. My background, I have a PhD in English, and my specialty is in Canadian literature. So research is in my DNA by now. And it was through research that I discovered the existence of these two women. And when I was looking for, especially with Isabel Gunn, looking for archival research, I went to the Hudson's Bay Archives in Winnipeg. And they had not only the captain's manifest for the voyage she came over on under the name John Fubister because she was concealing her identity, but also all of the journals that were written by the factors running the what fur trading posts in the Hudson's Bay Company were called factories, and the heads were called factors. And it was their job to write out what happened on the in the factory each day. So it was a treasure trove of detail and information that I was able to use.
Do you love what do you love more, like doing the research part of that, or when you're writing a book, or the actual writing? Because it sounds like you really do a ton of research and you're not just like making up worlds in your head.
No, that's true. I'm not. And I would say that each endeavor, whether it's research or I would say the writing is my favorite part, but the research is very exciting because when you discover something that you didn't know before that's relevant to the story, things just clang together and pretty much your brain blows up because it's like, oh my God, there's my story.
Yeah.
And even the existence of these women, I didn't know. I mean, I'm Canadian, I'd never heard of them before. But knowing with the research, knowing where they were and when they were there and how things worked out, it just it shapes the plot of the story and it deepens your understanding of what happened.
Are you ready for round three?
Sure.
Okay. These are fill in the blank, and the theme is risk it all. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you like a sentence, and you get to fill in the blank.
Okay.
She didn't wait for permission. She followed her what?
Instincts.
Good one. I like that. I'll accept that answer.
Okay,
Number
thank you.
2. When the map ended, she kept walking toward what?
Well, sounds like a bit of a Star Trek moment where no woman has walked before. So it's the unknown, but it's the unknown that she is walking into with her eyes open. So both of these, you seem to be talking about. Well, you could be talking about any of my female protagonists, but certainly in A Small Compass, when you had these two women doing an actual physical journey, and everything I hope for, it's a more social and emotional journey. But in A Small Compass, it's a physical journey. And they were quite well equipped for what they were about to do. I mean, Isabel Gunn, she came to work as a man, as an employee in the fur trade in Canada at the time. But she was a farm girl. She had grown up doing physical labor on a farm. So it's not as if she was a middle-class swan coming over here and not knowing what she was doing. She could lift things, she could push things, she could paddle things with the best of them.
All right, that sounds like a good answer to me. We're ending round 3 with 5 points, so I think you're doing a great job.
Okay.
What does Abigail's rifle purchase symbolize in the godforsaken place?
Action. She was feeling, the reason she bought it was that she had come all the way from England to teach, but also to have an adventure, and her father got ill with consumption. So she was on the verge of being trapped up here in the middle of nowhere, and she was getting far too much attention from the shop owner in the little village, and she just felt trapped. And so when she went and bought that rifle, it was allowing her to take some kind of action. Even she didn't know whether it was going to solve her problem or not, but it just felt like something she could do. And when you're feeling trapped, it's really nice to have something to do.
Yeah. I love how well thought out your books are. Like, I think this is fascinating for any author. Like, I've tried to write books before, I've started them, and to me, I don't understand how you make that path. And you have so intricately and detailed all of your characters, all of your books, all of the everything in there. I just find that so fascinating.
Well, my father used to say about me, I just asked a simple question. So it seems that I am prone to giving way more of an answer than is necessary. So I know that Alice Munro, a very famous Canadian short story writer, said that she didn't think in terms of of novels. She just conceived of story as short stories, and I'm the opposite. I conceive a big picture, and then the challenge is to figure out that detail that you're mentioning. What footstep by footstep do we get down that road?
Yeah,
Even though I know what the road is and where we're going.
I love that. Are you ready for round 4?
Sure.
All right, round 4 is character swap, so it's role play, so you get to choose. If you had to disguise yourself in 1806, what would you choose to disguise yourself as, or who?
Hmm. That is a very interesting question. I don't think I would disguise myself as a well. I can see the attraction of what Isabel Gunn did because she was out. There's a certain attraction to the wind blowing through your hair as you're paddling down a river, or riding on a horse, or doing something adventurous like that. So I could see myself choosing that. Marianne Gabry chose to go with her husband out west. I think I would want to do something that was more individually active. So I would say I'd trade places with Isabel before I'd trade places with Marianne.
I love that. I'll give a point for that. Love that
Okay.
answer. Which character from your books would you make the best spy?
I would say Abigail would be the best spy. She had to lose by not keeping her secret.
Good one. We're ending round 4 with 7 points. So I think you're doing a darn good job. What
Okay.
does reinvention mean to you personally?
It means that as you go along in life and you have an impression of what is going to happen, what your choices are going to be, you begin to learn. And when things don't turn out the way you would have expected, you need to reinvent a certain part of yourself to be able to acknowledge what reality is and then sort of refine your understanding of it so that you can grow.
Yeah, good answer. We're going to start round 5. You've got
Okay.
7 points going into round 5. These are historical trivia, fact, fiction. Now, question number 1. Annie Oakley, is this true or false? Annie Oakley once shot a cigarette out of Kaiser Wilhelm's mouth.
That's pretty specific. She was certainly capable of it, so I'm going to say true.
You are correct. That is true. Question number 2. The Orkney Islands had a matriarchal government.
Well, I haven't heard that one before. I know that it was called the Island of Women because the men were all away. So I suppose it could have happened like that, but I'm going to say false.
That is also true. See, I love the way your mind works.
Okay.
There's so much detail, and I love the way you think everything through. That's great. That is the end of round 5. We've got 9 points. So all you need is one more, and we'll get 10, and then everybody wins. It'll be fun.
Okay.
What historical myth do you love to challenge in your fiction writing?
Okay, well, I would say the myth that I would challenge about it is that women were trapped. And I think they were not as governed by the outside world as we are prone to thinking about today.
Kind of on that same realm, like how do you balance fact and imagination when you're writing historical fiction?
Well, that's a very good question because that is what a historical fiction writer has to deal with in every sentence. When you think about what can be handed down through history, think about what you know about your great great grandparents. You could know when they were born, when they got married, when they had children, when they died, and they might have written a journal or something, but they're not going to tell you about their secrets and their disappointments and their hopes and dreams. In that, there's so much more to a person's life than anything they could ever possibly write down. So there are certain things that can be handed down through history and certain things that can't. I mean, even if you think of what your great great grandchildren could know about you, They could see you on this podcast and know lots about you, but there's lots about you that isn't on this podcast.
Yeah.
So when you deal with things like, you start with facts, of course, with researching history, and you get all kinds of detail from the facts, but you breathe the life into those facts. One reason that I wrote the Isabel Gunn story was when I discovered her existence, I got all excited and ran out. I thought, oh my God, here's a story that's just dying to be told. And I discovered it had already been told by another writer. And I read that book, and I was astounded by how differently I pictured both Isabel Gunn as a person and the environment that she was in. So we were both dealing with all of the same facts, but wrote very, very different stories. And I would say that that is something that an historical writer has to do. But also, I think that's what we all do every day. We deal with facts, but then we breathe our own understandings of them into the life that we're building. So there's a very human part of how something looks and feels and tastes and smells that is what you have to infuse into the facts of history.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, even in reality in your everyday, like if you have siblings and you all grew up with the same parents
Same
and
breakfast.
what,
That's right.
yeah, but you all have different versions of that and you all have your own reality of what happened in the household.
Yeah, yeah, and probably your realities were very different
Yeah.
because different personalities connect with other personalities in different ways.
Yeah. That's so true. So true. Okay. Are you ready for the next round?
Yes.
Okay. It's called The Clue in the Cabin. Question number 1. You find a diary, a broken compass, and a rifle. Which tells you the most?
I would think it would have to be the diary.
Yeah. How come?
Because broken or not, it's going to have somebody's words in it and some sort of expression. And that, I think, is a key into somebody's personality and consciousness. From a gun, I wouldn't be knowledgeable enough to be able to tell from whatever a gun would present. And a compass isn't doing you much good if it's broken. So I would say the diary is the human thing that would give you the most information.
Yeah, I'd pick that too. If you were trapped in a cabin, who out of your characters gets you out and how?
I would say John Scarth. He was the man who helped Isabel. And he was a great big bear of a man. And he was very prone to helping her. Whatever she pushed him into, whether he wanted to go into it or not, he would take that responsibility. So I would think he'd be able to bash something down for me, and I think he would probably be motivated to do it.
I like that answer. So we're ending the round with 11 points. Which character of yours would you trust the most in a crisis?
Belinda.
Okay. How come?
Because she was insistent upon doing what she felt was right. And she did not allow hardship to drag her off course for that. So if she told you she was going to do something, she would do it. If she dedicated herself to you, she would go there until she hit some kind of brick wall.
What's the most surprising thing that you've heard about your books from a reader?
Surprising things. I don't think. What happens when people tell me about what was important to them in my book is not necessarily surprising in the sense that I never thought of that or I would have thought the opposite. It's more of a sense of satisfaction that somebody saw something that I put there. The relationship between a writer and a reader is kind of a magical one because to a certain extent, you as a writer, you bring to the table the story, but a reader brings everything that was in that person's life and consciousness as well. And you have this kind of meeting of minds through the reading process. And if somebody is telling me that something affected them, I probably put it there to affect them, and I'm delighted that they found it and were affected by it.
See, again, all of your details. This is what I'm saying. Are you ready for the final round?
I am.
Okay, here we go. Write a one-sentence motto for your literary legacy.
A one-sentence motto. Don't listen to anybody else.
Ooh. I like that. Love that. Yes, I love
because
that.
then you're living somebody else's life. I think a lot of people don't know what they want necessarily because you spend yourself negotiating what other people tell you should want. And I think it's easy to get out of touch with your own humanity. And I think we all owe it to ourselves to pick up the ticket for our own sense of meaning.
There you go. That's perfect. Choose one word to describe the spirit of your heroines.
Determined, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's the end of the game, and you finished with 13 points, which means everyone in the studio audience gets a copy of everything I hope for. So thank you, Cinda, for that.
You're very welcome. I will send a truck and back it up to your studio and dump out all kinds of copies of the book.
And they're all signed, correct? They're all autographed. Of course they are. Yes. What are you working on now?
Well, one of the things that I have learned about being a writer that has surprised me is how much time you have to spend on promotion. So that's what I'm doing more than writing these days is, and it also makes sense because I've just had a number of books all published in a row. So I'm needing to go out and tell the world about that. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing more often than not these days. But I know the next book that I want to write, and I am going to be very happy when I can get around to doing that. Although one thing, not only has the promotion stuff eaten up a lot of my time, but I have two granddaughters who were born 3.5 months apart in 2023. So they're just over 2, and I'm very involved with both of them. And I find that very exciting because that's a new generation. I had 2 boys, and now I've got 2 girls. And it's going to be very interesting. You know, I'm not going to know them as adult women because they're going to live way beyond me. So it's fascinating watching them become who they will be. If I died tomorrow, they wouldn't remember me because they're too young. But I can still feel that I am contributing to a base of something that they understand about themselves.
Oh, you're amazing. I love you so much. You're so fun. I hope you come back whenever the next book comes out. Come play again.
Well, I would love to. And the next book that I'm doing is a children's book.
Oh, perfect. What's the best way that people out there can connect with you?
They can go to my website, cindagault.com, and they will find on there all kinds of information about what my work has been and what podcasts I've done. And I have a number of videos on there just explaining what my books are about. So that would be the all-encompassing place that you could find out about me.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I must say that I have not been on a podcast that has done this before, and it's been fun.
Okay, good. Come back anytime, and I appreciate you being here.
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you. That's our show, everyone. We'll see you next time. Go make your day richer. Go make somebody else's day richer. You've made mine by watching the show, and I love you for it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.